Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Devastation in downtown Kingston after fire destroyed 8 houses. Opposition continues to blast government over handling of public sector wage negotiations. And in sports, South Africa in control of second and final test against West Indies. I'm Kelisha Williams and here are the details. Up first, this afternoon, more than 30 people, including children, are now homeless after fire gutted 8 houses on West Street in downtown Kingston this morning. Reports are that the fire started sometime after 8 a.m. and spread from West Street to Matthews Lane in Kingston. Now, firefighters are still trying to put out the blaze, and we'll have more details on this story in primetime news at 7. The opposition is continuing to chide the government for its handling of the wage negotiations for public sector workers. According to opposition leader Mark Golding, the workers have legitimate concerns which the government has failed to address. It comes as teachers have been urged to return to work after days of protests. Teachers Association issued a statement late Thursday evening urging teachers to go back to work as negotiations with the government will resume today. While the JTA and the government look to reach some sort of agreement, opposition leader Mark Golding said the government has been using the wrong approach.
There are things that can be done. The money is in the budget for this year to cover the back pay. Pay that into escrow, expense it this year, so that next year when we settle and we've agreed, hopefully we reach a good agreement, the money can be paid then without even going through next year's budget. During
a tour in Manchester, Mr. Golding further indicated that it is unfair to force the public sector workers to sign now.
They have concerns, they have legitimate concerns, there are uncertainties. They need to feel that what they're signing to make sense. It's a huge change that is being implemented in the public sector wage system. And people must understand what they're buying into. And some of the things have not been clear. And some of the things have not been fair. And that's the problem. They need to sort out the aspects of which are unfair, make sure there's equity in the system so people are comfortable to sign on to it.
In the meantime, an emergency conciliation meeting between the Ministry of Education and the Jamaica Teachers Association should be underway at the Ministry of Labour and Social Security to end the industrial action by some public school teachers. It was scheduled to begin at 8:30. The Ministry of Labour has indicated that the meeting is in response to a request made yesterday afternoon by the Education Ministry for its intervention. In the meantime, the industrial action by teachers dominated discussions at the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation's monthly meeting on Thursday. Counsel for the Mount Industry Division, Richard Curlew, pointed to the sacrifices made by teachers during the pandemic and why they deserve a livable wage.
I feel it to my heart that the teachers who held strain during the COVID pandemic, their own devices, their own internet, some of the phones crashed, some tablets crashed, some laptops crashed during the COVID pandemic, Mr. Chairman. This is how the government is treating the teachers of Jamaica. The classrooms now have become gangster place. Pick me a fight off teacher.
Mr. Curlew also took issue with criticisms that the opposition has been using the public sector wage negotiations to score political points.
I am also, Mr. Chairman, hurt this morning. I am hurt when I heard the Minister of Finance want to lighten the fact that the people of this country want equity and saying that it seems as though it is political. It is political, Mr. Chairman. We're asking for what we deserve. The teachers are asking for it. The doctors, the police, and other public sector workers. And this is political. Unheard of, Mr. Chairman.
And appeals this afternoon for the government to urgently investigate government entities which are breaking the law by paying workers below the minimum wage. Opposition spokesman on finance Julian Robinson made the revelation in the House of Representatives on Thursday during the budget debate. Andrea Chisholm reports.
The opposition is hoping that when the Labour Minister announces a new minimum wage in April 2023, it will be able to adequately address the basic needs of the workers. Until then, a shocking revelation.
The Minister of Labour announced an increase last year from 7,000 to 9,000. There are still government agencies and departments that have not adjusted from the 7,000 to the 9,000. So you have service providers, for example, who have contracts, whether they be the janitors or others, working in government agencies. But there has been no adjustment provided.
Julian Robinson adds that government has to lead by example. If private companies are held accountable, so too should government entities.
And Minister, I can give you the names of some of the companies offline, who is a lot of them. And they say, when they ask the questions why the new minimum wage is not earned, they are told that there's a cabinet decision that they are awaiting.
In the meantime, the opposition spokesman on finance took issue with the $8.37 billion allocation for the conditional cash transfer component of PATH. He said about 276,000 people get roughly $30,000 per year, and that's not enough. While those discussions continue, an appeal for PATH enrollment to be simplified. He said the process is frustrating and needy constituents are sometimes unable to qualify.
Very often when the social workers or the assessors go to the house, they might see a flat screen TV. They don't know where the TV come from, or a fridge or a two-burner stove. And then they tell the people, they don't tell you. You don't hear nothing, right? And then more likely than not, the constituent will call us as MP and say, what happened? Me apply, I don't hear nothing.
Andrea Chisholm, TVJ News.
And turning to agriculture, Mr. Robinson called for more investment in agriculture research and development to, among other things, produce better seedlings. He pointed out that the Ministry of Agriculture has been allocated $823 million for research and development, the Scientific Research Council $714 million, and Agro Investment Corporation $571 million.
The most hurtful thing is when a farmer, without necessarily the technical knowledge, spends his time, resources, planting something, probably without the guidance, only to find out that there is some disease, something which wipes out his crop. And when you wipe out his crop, you wipe out his livelihood. And I don't come to the 2-foot push them yet. But without the R&D, we're doing a disservice to our farmers.
And it's now time for a break, but stay with us. More stories when we come back. Welcome back to the Midday News, and thanks for staying with us. Continuing the news now, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Paula Llewellyn, says despite the challenges during the One Don gang trial, it was a success because of a collaborative effort. In an interview on the Morning Agenda on Power 106 FM today, the DPP said credit must be given to each stakeholder.
I and my colleagues would have to pause to pay every credit, commendation, and congratulations to a very well-investigated matter. Well investigated because there would have been a lot of challenges which would have seen several of law enforcement members in harm's way.
She said recognition must be given to the Crown witnesses for their bravery.
They chose to put Jamaica first, so they too have to be commended.
In the meantime, the DPP said although this is not the first complex and technical case her office has dealt with, this conviction under the anti-gang legislation has further enhanced the law enforcement and bolster prosecution services. A councillor in St. Catherine wants the National Water Commission to be held accountable for the occasional overflow of raw sewage in communities and possibly the Rio Cobre. As Krista Campbell reports, the NWC has responded.
The Water Commission must be held responsible In some countries, them would have sued them.
But in every instance, the National Water Commission is committed to seeking to operate our wastewater facilities in keeping with the best standards and based on the available resources to us.
Councillor for the Breton Division Anthony Wint versus the National Water Commission NWC. At the latest St. Catherine Municipal Corporation Health and Sanitation Committee meeting, Councillor Wint vented on behalf of residents in Ensom City, Portmore, about an overflow of untreated sewage.
In speaking with the officer with responsibility for wastewater and sewage, she indicated to me that the discharge is from the Eltham Park plant.
I know it has been happening for quite some time and some remedial measures have been taking place, but we can't allow things like these to happen in our parish. The Water Commission must be held responsible.
But when I spoke to the NWC about it, Communication and Public Affairs Manager Charles Buchanan said the checks were made and there was no evidence of any overflow since last year.
The occurrence was in December and that came over into January. It was on the last 2 days or something of December and came over into January. Repairs were effected and changes made. A blockage was found in one of the manholes, and unfortunately the blockage included a lot of foreign material that do not belong in the sanitary sewers.
And with anything from sanitary napkins to even fetuses sometimes clogging sewers, he stressed the need for personal responsibility.
If you throw solid, non-biodegradable material into the sewers, it will likely create a blockage at some point and then causes overflow.
Now, Councillor Wint was also concerned about sewage sometimes leaking into the already polluted Rio Cobre. Mr. Buchanan said it is a possibility.
The overflow sometimes may be occurring from a manhole in the street somewhere. If it is next to a water body, it will flow and likely go in there, especially if it happens for an extended period of time.
But he says the first phase of works to improve the Eltham Park sewage treatment plant in St. Catherine is complete and more upgrades will be done in a second phase of works. Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
It's now time for the Business Minute. Here's Sandy Williams. Kingston Wharves raked in less profit during its 2022 financial year, which ended December. Profit post-tax earnings amounted to $2.3 billion. That's $803.2 million less than 2021, when the company made $3.1 billion. The logistic company, however, had increased income of $215.44 million compared to 2021. Revenue for the year was valued at $7.96 billion versus $7.74 billion in 2021. Kingston Wharves says with increased trade activities, it is looking to see better results for the 2023 financial year. General Motors is looking to cut costs by offering buyouts to its employees. In January, the auto giant had said it would save $2 billion without any layoffs. But on Thursday, the company announced it wants eligible employees to volunteer to leave. The separation program would offer salaried workers who have been with the company for at least 5 years a lump sum payment and other severance based on their number of years with the company. The buyouts would cost General Motors $1.5 billion before taxes this year. And that's the Business Minute. I'm Sandy Williams. Time now for the top regional and international stories. Carrie-Ann Simpson has the roundup.
In the region, the St. Lucia-based Organization of Eastern Caribbean States OECS Commission has launched a new initiative aimed at reducing crime and empowering young people in the sub-regional grouping. It said that 6 OECS member states, including Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and St. Kitts and Nevis, have long been plagued by high rates of violent crime affecting young people between the ages of 15 and 29. The OECS Commission said, in partnership with the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, it has launched the project dubbed Opportunities to Advance and Support Youth for Success with a budget of US $5.3 million. On the international scene, Georgia's parliament on Friday formally revoked a controversial foreign influence bill that sparked major protests amid concerns that it resembled Russian laws used to stifle political dissent. Lawmakers voted against the bill in its second reading by a margin of 35-1. Friday's vote came a day after the country's ruling party announced it would scrap the proposed legislation, hours after tens of thousands of people rallied outside the Georgian parliament for a second night of protests. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
And we now head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report. Jermaine Brown is on standby.